This is the fastest movement in nature, faster than you can blink your eye, faster than your brain will even be able to process. It's called a mantis shrimp, and while it kinda just looks like any other shrimp, it'll break the bone in your finger if you try to poke it, instantly. They can break aquarium glass, clam shells, crab armor, all with something the size of a baby carrot. And if a human tried to strike at the same speed, you would shatter all the bones in your hand. Why did these shrimp evolve to be so much more violent than any other shrimp in the sea? And what are they defending themselves against to make the weakest crustaceans in the ocean need to have a gun attached to their hand? To answer these questions, we first need to understand what a mantis shrimp actually is. Despite the name, mantis shrimp aren't actually shrimp at all. They are crustaceans, yes, but they belong to a completely different order called stomatopods, which split off from other modern crustaceans very early in evolutionary history, like close to 400 million years ago. There are thousands of species, and they range a lot in size, so while some are about the size of your hand, others grow to the size of your forearm. And even though they belong to the same group as shrimps, crabs, and lobsters, the mantis shrimp isn't really a normal crustacean. They're actually divided into two types, based off the weapon they'd use to kill you: sharp spines or punching clubs. The spines belong to the warrior class called spearers. And yes, these things will literally stab you with a spear. Spearers have these sharp weapons made of chitin and calcium phosphate to ambush instead of relying solely on brute force. And because of them, they don't really need to go too far from their burrow to find food. Instead, the spearer waits for fish or squid to pass by, then strikes in a split second, grabbing their prey and yanking it to its burrow before it has time to react. Another warrior class is called smashers, and these are the ones who got famous, because instead of stabbing their prey, they just punch it. Smashers grab their target with their claws, position it just right, and then... They aren't really taking down anything like a whale, but they'll absolutely destroy any other crustacean that walks towards them. So they've developed an insta-kill so they can terrorize the reef. But why? Isn't this a bit overkill just to hunt some little fish? Well, most food in the microreef is locked inside thick shells, and despite growing up to about 15 inches long, stomatopods aren't large enough to hunt big animals, so the mantis shrimp had to find another way to survive in its environment. And surprisingly, they figured it out very early in their evolutionary history. Instead of relying purely on muscle, stomatopods evolved weapons capable of delivering extreme force, making their strikes up to 1500 newtons. Neither you or me actually know how strong 1500 newtons is off the top of our head. So how strong actually is that? Well, technically, humans can punch harder, reaching around 3,300 newtons. But that's only for elite boxers or other heavyweights. Your grandma is probably punching at somewhere around 75 newtons, and an average grown man might be punching at only 400. Even when comparing to the heavyweight boxers, this comparison also misses two other huge points. First, the contact area is way smaller on the mantis shrimp. That means the pressure is way higher, which is why they're so much better at puncturing a crab shell. Also, even though a mantis shrimp's punch delivers around half the force of an elite human's, keep in mind these shrimps are only a few inches long. You don't expect to be walking through the ocean and randomly feel the force of Mike Tyson punching your toe. Basically, no other animals in the ocean punch like this. Even though some tried to use a similar strategy, like the boxer crab, no one in the ocean can actually punch the way mantis shrimp can. And honestly, punching things turned out to be an incredible strategy. The mantis shrimp has survived multiple mass extinctions. They made it through the Great Dying of the Permian era, the largest die-off event in Earth's history, and also the asteroid impact that ended the age of dinosaurs. So, if punching is so good, why isn't everything else in the ocean punching too? The short answer is physics. And the long answer is you'd end up dying yourself before you killed anything else. If you've ever tried to throw a punch while standing in a swimming pool, you know exactly what happens. Your arm moves through the water in what feels like slow motion. This is because water is about 800 times denser than air. It creates a massive amount of drag. For almost every animal in the ocean, trying to move an appendage fast enough to do actual damage is a physical impossibility. The water simply pushes back too hard. But there is a second, even bigger problem: the speed limit of meat. Most animals use moving muscle contraction, but muscles have a biological limit to how fast they can actually snap shut. If you're a shark or a tuna, you can be strong or you can be fast, but you usually can't be both at the exact same millisecond. To punch through water density, you need a level of acceleration that normal muscles simply can't provide. So, the Smasher uses a saddle-shaped spring mechanism in its exoskeleton to store elastic energy. When the latch is released, the club accelerates to over 50 miles per hour, which is an acceleration comparable to a .22 caliber bullet when fired. This basically vaporizes water momentarily because when the Mantis shrimp punches, it generates a low pressure zone behind it, causing the surrounding water to vaporize due to a sudden pressure drop. This event is called a cavation bubble, and when these bubbles collapse, they unleash a secondary shockwave, meaning that even if the Mantis shrimp kills its prey by a fraction of an inch, the shockwave alone is often enough to stun or outright kill the target. At the exact moment of collapse, the bubbles emit a tiny flash of light and briefly reach temperatures of several thousand degrees Kelvin, comparable to the surface of the sun. You don't even need to be hit by the punch to get completely obliterated. I know, yikes. But this raises a problem. Why don't their clubs break? Because according to Newton's third law, every action produces an equal and opposite reaction. So by that logic, when the Mantis shrimp delivers its devastating punch, it should receive the same force in return. And it does. But we can't actually see it with the naked eye, because what occurs is hidden in the structure of the Mantis shrimp's weapon. The Mantis shrimp's club follow a design known as the Bulligan structure. In this structure, layers of chitin fiber are stacked in overlapping sheets, with each layer slightly rotated in relation to the one before it, forming a helical pattern. Because of this arrangement, when the Smasher delivers a strike and receives the impact in return, the force isn't concentrated in one point. Instead, it's dispersed across multiple layers, dramatically reducing damage and making the club extraordinarily resistant to breaking. The same structure is now being studied by scientists to inspire the design of bulletproof vests, aircraft fuselages, and even spacecraft components. But having a weapon that moves faster than a bullet is useless, if you can't actually find your target. For some reason, when something gets close to a Mantis shrimp, it will just simply stop and stare. It doesn't immediately run or attack, it just stares. It also rotates its eyes while staring. Although this looks kind of odd, the Mantis shrimp is actually tweaking the photoreceptors inside its eyes, and by doing so, they kinda separate what they're seeing from the background. This basically means almost nothing can stay hidden from them, not even transparent animals. And camouflage is also pretty much useless when you're trying to hide from a Mantis shrimp. Since they have between 12 and 16 photoreceptors, they can detect way more wavelengths than we can, like ultraviolet light and others completely invisible to us. But they don't actually see more colors. All those photoreceptors just allow Mantis shrimp to recognize specific color signatures, helping them instantly identify patterns instead of blending shapes. Mantis shrimp can see circularly polarized light, a phenomenon in which light waves rotate in a circular motion. It can also perceive depth with just one eye while moving each eye independently, allowing it to look in multiple directions at once. We still don't actually fully understand why this animal evolved such efficient vision though. It's strange, but although there's a bunch of hypotheses, there isn't a single definitive explanation for why their eyes became this extreme. It's probably for hunting, or that they live in bright reefs, but it is weirdly overkill. But despite these insane eyes, or the fact they condensed the power of Muhammad Ali into a 3-inch shrimp, the weirdest part about the Mantis shrimp was that they developed a brain. Other crustaceans do have brains, of course, but Mantis shrimp's brains are weird. They have insect brains. It evolved something called mushroom bodies. They're basically advanced processing structures that act like a cerebral cortex. Inside the Mantis shrimp's brain, sensory information is first received, then integrated to produce complex responses. That information is then stored as a memory, which allows the Mantis shrimp to remember specific hunting locations and recognize neighboring individuals. So yeah, it can basically hold a grudge against animals it's encountered before. A really cool example of these mushroom bodies in action is when a Mantis shrimp needs to return to its burrow after hunting. Most animals rely on something called idiothetic path integration to find their way back home. The name sounds a bit fancy, but the idea is actually pretty simple. When an animal moves around, it keeps track of its own movements internally. It records every turn it makes and estimates the distance between its current position and its burrow. From that information, the animal builds a mental vector, allowing it to return home in a straight line if needed, instead of retracing every single step it took. Now, this is something usually only seen in insects, like ants, bees, and stuff, and something really rare in the ocean. While most crustaceans are solitary and aggressive, some species of mantis shrimp are actually monogamous. And I don't mean monogamous for a season. I mean they find a partner and stay with them for up to 20 years. They share a burrow, they coordinate their hunting, and they even take turns guarding the eggs. It's kinda cute, like they got married. Not really expected from a creature whose first instinct is to strike at everything that moves with a bullet. They are either the most terrifying antisocial neighbors on the reef, or they are the ocean's most committed long-term partners. But just like it happens in the human world, if you go around flexing how much of a sick boxer you are, someone will want to fight you. We've talked a lot about how good these guys are at attacking, but we haven't really looked at their defense. If a mantis shrimp can punch through a clamshell, it stands to reason that another mantis shrimp could punch through a mantis shrimp. Since they are highly territorial, they get into fights all the time. But if every fight ended with a .22 caliber impact to the chest, the species would have gone extinct millions of years ago. They'd all just be blowing each other up. So they developed a shield. The tail of a mantis shrimp, called the telson, is essentially a piece of biological heavy armor. It's shaped like a buckler and is reinforced with the same bulligan structure found in their clubs. When two smashers fight, they have a little ritualized tournament. They take turns. One shrimp will coil up and present its armored tail, and the other will take a massive swing. They literally play a game of who can stand the most pain until one of them realizes they're outmatched and leaves the burrow. And well, this strategy works. It allows them to settle disputes without actually killing each other. Well, most of the time. It's mutually assured destruction for them, so they balance it out in a somewhat friendly boxing match. These guys are the ultimate proof that in the ocean, size doesn't actually matter. It's only about how hard you can hit. Offense is the best defense when you can punch this hard. I'm never stepping foot in a reef again. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed and you want to see something that could probably, almost definitely kill a mantis shrimp, check out this video here on the Megalodon.